Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the subject of my special order.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, it is again an honor for me to be here today with my colleagues to honor the 79 living Congressional Medal of Honor recipients. And to continue what we started earlier, I'd like to recognize my colleague from the great state of Illinois, Mr. Shimkus.
I want to thank my colleague and friend for the recognition and the opportunity to recognize Captain Howard V. Lee from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Captain Lee was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry above and beyond the call of duty in action against the enemy in Vietnam. When Lee realized that the unit had suffered numerous casualties, depriving it of effective leadership, and fully aware that the platoon was even under more heavy attack by the enemy, Major Lee took 7 men and proceeded by helicopter to reinforce the beleaguered platoon. Major Lee disembarked from the helicopter with 2 of his men and, braving withering enemy fire, led them into the perimeter, where he fearlessly moved from position to position, directing and encouraging the overtaxed troops. Although painfully wounded by fragments from an enemy grenade in several areas of his body, including his eye, Major Lee continued undauntedly throughout the night to direct the valiant defense, coordinating supporting fire, and apprising higher headquarters of the plight of the platoon. The next morning he collapsed from his wounds and was forced to relinquish the command. It is for his courage and unwavering devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Captain Howard V. Lee. Semper Fi.
Thank you to my good friend, Mr. Shimkus. At this point, I'd like to recognize my colleague from the great state of New York, the 20th District, Mr. Tonko.
And I thank the gentleman from Illinois and the gentlewoman from Hawaii for bringing us together in a bipartisan, spirited way to recognize the living Medal of Honor winners who are much applauded and much recognized and deeply loved by this nation. I rise this evening to honor the heroic efforts of Sergeant First Class Francis Sherman Curry of the United States Army. Sergeant Curry was with the 30th Infantry Division, served with that division, and was awarded the Medal of Honor for acts of conspicuous gallantry on December 21st of 1944 near Malmedy, Belgium. While defending a strong point, Sergeant Curry's platoon was overrun by German tanks. Leading to the withdrawal of his platoon, Sergeant Curry was able to obtain a bazooka despite taking heavy fire from enemy tanks and infantrymen just a short distance away. Pushing forward, Sergeant Curry eliminated 1 tank and cleared 3 German soldiers from a house. Discovering 5 trapped American soldiers, Sergeant Curry acquired several anti-tank grenades. In driving the tank men from their vehicles, he provided enough cover fire to free the 5 soldiers. It is for his indomitable heroism and consummate devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Sergeant First Class Sherman Curry. And I thank you for the opportunity to share with you this evening on behalf of this wonderful gentleman.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for being here to honor the hero, a true hero. I'd like to now recognize my colleague from Florida, Mr. Buchanan.
I want to thank the gentleman from Illinois, the gentlelady from Hawaii. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Private First Class Hector Elbert Cafferata, Jr. of the United States Marine Corps. Private Cafferata was awarded the Medal of Honor for his bravery in action in Korea on November 28, 1950, while serving with the famed 1st Marine Division. As the only unwounded member of his squad, he single-handedly engaged the enemy while under heavy fire from machine guns, mortars, and grenades. For over 7 hours, he was able to successfully fend off wave after wave of enemy attacks until reinforcements could arrive. However, after reinforcements arrived, he moved in as an enemy grenade landed in his trench. The private immediately grabbed the grenade and threw it from the trench before it detonated. Though wounded by the blast, he saved the lives of many of his men serving with him that day. It is for this supreme bravery and courageousness in carrying out his duties that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Private First Class Hector Albert Cafferata, Jr. I yield back.
Thank you to my colleague from Florida. I'd like to now recognize my colleague, Mr. Heck from Washington's 10th District.
Thank you, and I would like to add my expression of gratitude both to the gentleman from the state of Illinois and the gentlelady from the state of Hawaii for the honor of participating in this. I rise now to acknowledge the gallantry of a couple of more residents of Washington State's 10th Congressional District who are recipients of the Congressional Medal of Honor. I've had the great privilege to meet both of these gentlemen. First, I rise to honor the heroic efforts of Sergeant First Class Leroy Arthur Petry of the United States Army. Sergeant First Class Petry was with the 75th Ranger Regiment and was awarded the Medal of Honor for exceptional bravery in action on May 26, 2008 in Afghanistan. Though seriously wounded following an enemy attack, Sergeant First Class Petry was able to move himself and a companion to safety and communicate the situation to the rest of the squad. When another Ranger moved forward to assist them, a grenade fell between the men. Sergeant First Class Petry unhesitatingly sprang for it and attempted to throw it away. Although he saved the lives of the two men with him, the grenade exploded and seriously wounded Sergeant First Class Petry. Indeed, he lost a good part of his right arm. His right hand is a prosthetic. I've shaken that hand on multiple occasions, and I cannot explain the magic that it is among the warmest handshakes I've ever experienced. It is for his extraordinary heroism and devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Sergeant First Class Leroy Arthur Petry, a resident of Steilacoom, Washington. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Master Sergeant Wilburn Kirby Ross of the United States Army. Master Sergeant Ross was with the 3rd Infantry Division and was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry in action on October 30th, 1944, near Saint-Jacques, France. After his company had attacked a German company, Master Sergeant Ross placed his machine gun in front of their line in order to absorb the initial impact of a counterattack. Master Sergeant Ross then fired with deadly effect on the assaulting force and repelled it. He continued to man his machine gun, holding off 6 more German attacks. Master Sergeant Ross killed 40 and wounded 10 of the enemy, broke the assault single-handedly, and forced the Germans to withdraw. Master Sergeant Ross remained at his post that night and the following day for a total of 36 hours. And in a coda to his story, he was a careerist in the United States Army and was inadvertently shipped to Korea after World War II, which was against Department of Defense policy. Not discovered until he was halfway to Korea. His commanding officer asked him what he was doing there. He said, "Well, I can hardly swim back now, sir." On the very first day in Korea, Sergeant Ross was wounded again, for which he received the Purple Heart. It is for his extraordinary bravery that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Master Sergeant Wilburn Ross, a resident of DuPont, Washington. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
As my good friend from the great state of New Jersey, Mr. Lance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise this evening to honor the military service record of Colonel Jack H. Jacobs of Far Hills, New Jersey. Colonel Jacobs was awarded the U.S. Army's Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry above and beyond the call of duty in action against the enemy in Vietnam. Under intense heavy machine gun and mortar fire from a Viet Cong battalion, Colonel Jacobs called for and directed airstrikes on the enemy positions to facilitate a renewed attack. Due to the intensity of the enemy fire and heavy casualties to the command group, including the company commander. The attack stopped. Although wounded by mortar fragments, Colonel Jacobs assumed command of the Allied company, ordered a withdrawal from the exposed position, and established a defensive perimeter. He returned under intense fire to evacuate a seriously wounded advisor to the safety of a wooded area where he administered life-saving first aid. He then returned through heavy automatic weapons fire to evacuate the wounded company commander. It is for his courage and unwavering devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Colonel Jack H. Jacobs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Lance. Mr. Speaker, since the first Medal of Honor was given on March 25, 1863, only 3,461 men have also earned it. And today, as has been mentioned, only 79 living recipients remain. In order to properly honor these heroes, as you know, we have invited our fellow members of Congress in bipartisan fashion to come to the floor and speak on each one of the living recipients of this great Medal of Honor. But I'd first like to personally thank my colleague, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, for joining me in this effort across the aisle. As a veteran and a current member of the Hawaii National Guard, Tulsi exemplifies the values and discipline of our armed services. I would also like to recognize Garrett Anderson, my district staffer who handles veterans issues and who was able to join me tonight for this special occasion. Garrett is a veteran of the Iraq War and has become a leader for all veterans and wounded warriors, not only in his home community of Champaign-Urbana, but throughout our nation. Representative Tulsi Gabbard and Garrett Anderson are not only role models to young folks across this great country, but to my own children as well. I am honored to have their support tonight. And right now, I'd like to recognize my colleague, Tulsi Gabbard.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I am so proud personally to be able to join with my friend and my colleague, Representative Rodney Davis, as we lead this bipartisan special order to remember and to honor the extraordinary sacrifice and displays of true love of country that have been exemplified by the proud warriors who've served in conflicts past and present. President Kennedy once said, "A nation reveals itself not only by the men it produces, but also by the men it honors and the men it remembers." I had the privilege last year, as the reunion was held in Hawaii for these remaining living Medal of Honor recipients. We had a dinner on the bow of the mighty Mo at Pearl Harbor, and it was so incredible and moving to be there in the presence of people I had read about, been inspired by, and been motivated by as a child, but throughout my time training as well, when those days felt dark and you felt tired and you felt like maybe I just can't do this. It was these men who truly exemplified and gave us, as we were training, energy to move forward. Each of these 79 living veterans has been awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor, our nation's highest military decoration for valor in combat. And for us to stand here this evening, we represent our constituents, the sentiments and appreciation of a grateful nation. The select few, like Staff Sergeant Alan J. Kellogg from my state of Hawaii, who also lives in my hometown of Kailua, consciously made the decision at the point when it mattered most to do an extraordinary thing, that if need be, they would give their lives for others. And what's so incredible about all of these men who I've had the honor to meet, they are humble, humble heroes who would do it in a heartbeat again, if necessary. They made tremendous sacrifices protecting our ideals and freedoms to keep our nation safe. And it's because of their sacrifice and their service that we can be here today to speak our minds, sometimes agreeing, sometimes disagreeing, where we can practice our faith and pursue our dreams. That's the reason we gather today, members of Congress from both parties and from across the country, to stand in awe of their sacrifice and to pay tribute to their heroic actions. We also remember the parents and the community that raised these heroes, the families that stood behind them, the military that trained them, and their battle buddies, the men and women who served by their side. I think I can safely say that I speak for all Americans when I say that we are incredibly grateful for what they have done for us and what they have done for our country. The courage they have shown, the example they have set for us is truly special. And none of the words that we can say will ever be truly worthy of their sacrifice or their service, but we do our best to pay our tribute and express our gratitude. While tonight we're honoring the remaining living veterans who have been recipients of Medal of Honor, I would like to take a moment to remember a Medal of Honor recipient who is near and dear to my heart, to the state of Hawaii and to the country, and who is no longer with us. Senator Daniel K. Inouye enlisted in the U.S. Army at age 17, just after the attack on Pearl Harbor. He served with E Company of the 442 Regimental Combat Team, made up entirely of soldiers of Americans of Japanese ancestry, at a time when our country was putting Japanese Americans in concentration camps. In 1945, Senator Inouye lost his arm and suffered multiple injuries as he charged a series of German machine gun nests on a hill in Italy. His selfless acts during this battle later earned him the Medal of Honor. Continuing his lifelong commitment of service to Hawaii and the nation, Dan Inouye was Hawaii's very first congressman and served in the Senate since 1963. Senator Inouye was a true servant leader and American hero of the highest order, and he continues to be an inspiration to me and countless others around the world. Congressman Davis and I now have the honor to be joined by some of our colleagues as we continue to honor these courageous heroes. I yield back.
Thank you, Tulsi. It's an honor to be standing here with you in this great chamber to honor our heroes. Now I'd like to recognize my good friend, Mr. Kilmer, from the great state of Washington.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank Representatives Davis and Gabbard for organizing this important time. It's my honor to stand on the floor and recognize the heroic actions of two distinguished recipients of the Medal of Honor that I have the pleasure of representing, John Hawk and Bruce Crandall. Sergeant Hawk was with the 90th Infantry Division and was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry while serving in France during World War II, and particularly for his actions on August 20th of 1944. While manning a light machine gun, Sergeant Hawk successfully pushed back the infantry forces with his machine gun fire. When an artillery shell knocked out his gun and wounded his thigh, Sergeant Hawk secured a bazooka and pursued the remaining tanks, forcing them into a wooded section. While organizing two machine gun squads and facing intense enemy fire and with tanks in close proximity, Sergeant Hawk repeatedly climbed to an exposed knoll in order to direct fire until two of the tanks were knocked out and the third was driven off. Even while suffering a painful wound, Sergeant Hawk continued to direct fire until the enemy surrendered. He showed that day, like many of our soldiers do, fearless initiative and heroic conduct. That heroism was also displayed by Lieutenant Colonel Bruce Perry Crandall of the United States Army. Assigned to A Company, 229th Assault Helicopter Battalion, Lieutenant Colonel Crandall was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions in Vietnam. On November 14, 1965, then Major Crandall led the 1st Major Division operation of Air Mobile Troops into Landing Zone X-Ray, bringing ammunition and supplies and evacuating the wounded. Flying more than 14 hours in a single day in unarmed helicopters, Major Crandall and his team rescued more than 70 wounded soldiers. Under the most extreme fire, his brave decision to land under fire instilled in the other pilots the will to continue and assured the ground forces that they would be resupplied. It's for his indomitable heroism that I'm proud to honor and remember the actions of Lieutenant Colonel Bruce Crandall. Let me just say in closing, our nation is stronger for the service and sacrifices of these two Distinguished Medal of Honor recipients, for all of the recipients of the Medal of Honor, and for all of those who serve our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Thank you. Now I'd like to recognize my colleague from the great state of California, Mr. McClintock.
I thank my friend for yielding. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the courageous acts of Sergeant Major John R. Caviani. Sergeant Major Caviani earned his Medal of Honor during the war in Vietnam. On the morning of June 4th, 1971, Sergeant Major Caviani's camp came under intense enemy fire. Repeatedly exposing himself to that enemy fire in order to move about the perimeter, Caviani was able to direct the platoon's fire in a desperate fight for survival. When the platoon was called to be evacuated, Sergeant Major Caviani volunteered to remain on the ground and to direct the evacuation. The following morning, the enemy attack continued. Unable to slow down the assault, Sergeant Major Caviani ordered his platoon to escape, while he stayed behind to provide cover fire, thus protecting the men of his platoon. On behalf of a grateful nation and a respectful and loving community, I'm proud to salute the heroism and to recount the actions of Sergeant Major John R. Caviani of Columbia, California. And I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. McClintock. Right now I'd like to recognize my good friend from the great state of Indiana, Mr. Messer.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to honor the heroic efforts of a great Hoosier, Sergeant Sammy L. Davis of the United States Army. Sergeant Davis, then Private First Class Davis, distinguished himself while serving at a remote support base in Vietnam. On November 18, 1967, Sergeant Davis' support base came under enemy mortar attack, and he was also threatened with a ground assault from across the river. Detecting a nearby enemy position, Sergeant Davis seized a machine gun and provided cover for his gun crew. But the enemy managed a direct hit. Ignoring warnings to seek cover, Sergeant Davis returned to the howitzer, which was burning furiously. Although he was painfully injured by enemy mortar, Sergeant Davis relentlessly continued firing. Disregarding his injuries and his inability to swim, Sergeant Davis crossed the river on an air mattress, where he aided in returning 3 soldiers to the support base. Refusing medical attention for his own wounds, he joined another gun crew, firing at the enemy until they fled. I am proud to honor and remember the extraordinary heroism of Sergeant Sammy L. Davis. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Messer. I'd like to now recognize my colleague from the great state of Texas, Ms. Jackson Lee.
Let me thank my colleagues for allowing me to join you this evening in what I think is an enormously important tribute. As I present this distinguished gentleman, this hero, I just want to make mention of my friend, Clarence Eugene Sasser, a Medal of Honor winner, born in September 12, 1947, and received his Medal of Honor for his actions in the Vietnam War. He's now passed, and I know that those who live recognize their fellow recipients for their heroism. But we are honoring tonight those who live. And so it is my privilege to be able to salute Sergeant Major Kenneth E. Stump of Tomah, Wisconsin. Mr. Speaker, I rise to honor the heroic efforts of Sergeant Major Kenneth Edward Stump of the United States Army. Sergeant Major Stump was with Company C of the 25th Infantry Division and received the Medal of Honor for gallantry in action on April 25, 1967. Might I just say, Mr. Speaker, we know that as our Vietnam vets came home, the response was not an American response. I'm grateful to be able to stand on the floor today to say that their valiant service, evidenced by so many, and certainly through the honoring of this great Medal of Honor winner, now comes to the full attention of America, where we will never, never welcome our soldiers home in any other manner than to say thank you. Sergeant Major Stump's company approached a village and encountered a well-fortified bunker complex. 3 men were wounded in front of a hostile machine gun emplacement. Sergeant Major Stump and his squad successfully eliminated 2 bunker positions, but one still remained a serious threat. Armed with hand grenades, Sergeant Major Stump ran through enemy fire, and as he reached the bunker, he pulled the pins on 2 grenades and directed them directly into it. With the bunkers eliminated, Sergeant Major Stump was able to rescue the 3 wounded servicemen. It is for this fighting spirit and ultimate concern for the lives of his fellow soldiers that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Sergeant Major Kenneth Edward Stump. We will always remember the valiant efforts of our soldiers. Wars have agreement and disagreement, but no one in America ever disagrees with the service, the sacrifice, the love, the valiant effort of our men and women in the United States military. Sergeant Major Kenneth Edward Stump, Medal of Honor winner, we salute you. With that, I yield back.
Thank you to the gentlelady from Texas. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to now begin the process where Ms. Gabbard and I are going to read some of the remaining speeches in honor of some of our heroes who are living here today. And I'd first like to go through a few for my colleagues that are going to be submitted for the record, but are unable to be here tonight due to extenuating circumstances. My good friend Bill Young from Florida is submitting for the record a speech in honor of Sergeant First Class Luttrell of Florida. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry above and beyond the call of duty in the Republic of Vietnam on April 8th of 1970. Sergeant First Class Luttrell was assigned to the United States Military Assistance Command, and he distinguished himself while serving as a light weapons infantry advisor with the 23rd Battalion. I'd also like to recognize and submit for the record in honor of my colleague Lynn Jenkins from the state of Kansas, to honor Colonel Roger Hugh Charles Donlin of Leavenworth, Kansas, who was awarded the Medal of Honor in 1964 for distinguished service in Vietnam. While defending a U.S. military installation against an attack by hostile forces, Colonel Donlin directed the defense operations in the midst of an enemy barrage. Also, submitting for the record on behalf of my colleague Lamar Smith, we're going to honor Major General Patrick Henry Brady. Major General Brady was awarded the Medal of Honor for extreme heroism on January 6, 1968 in Vietnam as a member of the 54th Medical Detachment. He rescued dozens of seriously wounded men from an enemy-held territory blanketed by fog and braved enemy fire to save his comrades. Also, on behalf of my colleague Andrew Crenshaw from the great state of Florida, I'd like to honor Petty Officer Robert Ingram from Jacksonville, Florida, for the valiant efforts of Hospital Corpsman 3rd Class Robert Ingram, who was in the United States Navy and was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty in the Republic of North Vietnam on March 28, 1966, as he accompanied a point platoon as it engaged in an outpost of a North Vietnamese battalion. Mr. Ingram was able to move from a ridge to a rice paddy and then the tree line while it exploded with a hail of bullets from 100 North Vietnamese regulars. And in mere moments, the platoon ranks were decimated, but he proceeded to collect ammunition from the dead and offered aid to the wounded. I'd also like to now recognize my colleague from the great state of Hawaii to honor some more of our heroes.
Thank you. I also, on behalf of 2 of my colleagues who unfortunately could not be here, to honor their honorees, on behalf of Chris Van Hollen from the state of Maryland, I'd like to honor First Lieutenant Brian Thacker of the United States Army. He was with the 92nd Field Artillery Regiment and received his Medal of Honor for actions on March 31st, 1971 in Vietnam. His base was attacked and he assisted in its defense, remained in position when it became apparent that the evacuation of the base was necessary. He organized and directed the withdrawal of the remaining friendly forces with complete disregard for his personal safety. Lieutenant Thacker remained inside the perimeter alone to provide covering fire until all friendly forces had escaped. Due to his selfless acts, he remained trapped behind enemy lines for 8 days before he was finally rescued. Also, on behalf of my colleague, Congressman Ray Hall from West Virginia, I, with great pleasure, rise to honor Herschel Woodrow Williams and his heroic efforts and service. I had the honor of meeting Herschel last year when he and the other Medal of Honor recipients were in Hawaii, and heard directly from him, even as he sat in a wheelchair. His courageous and bold spirit was alive and well, and it was such an honor to meet him. I asked him for his autograph. He was with the 3rd Marine Division when he was awarded the Medal of Honor for gallantry on February 23, 1945, on the island of Iwo Jima. Flanked by just 4 riflemen, time and again Corporal Williams advanced into the enemy defenses to set charges and wipe out enemy positions with a flamethrower. He brazenly charged pillboxes and enemy defenses to pave the way for his fellow soldiers. Truly, his unyielding determination and extraordinary heroism are legendary. Woody's devotion did not end there. Back home, upon returning to his family, he served as a civilian counselor and as a volunteer in his church, community, and with veterans organizations. He continued to dedicate his life to repay those who gave all, so that he and countless others could come home, resulting in a lifelong commitment to service. For his valiant devotion to our nation, I'm so proud to honor Chief Warrant Officer for Herschel Woodrow Williams.
I'd like to now, Mr. Speaker, rise today to honor the valiant efforts of Private First Class Thomas J. Kinsman of the United States Army. Private First Class Kinsman was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty in action against the enemy in Vietnam. As his company was proceeding up a narrow canal in armored troops carriers, it came under sudden and intense rocket attack, automatic weapons, and small arms fire from a well-entrenched Viet Cong force. The company immediately beached and began assaulting the enemy bunker complex. As they were moving through heavy enemy fire to effect a link-up, an enemy soldier in a concealed position hurled a grenade into their midst. Mr. Kinsman immediately alerted his comrades of the danger, then unhesitatingly threw himself on the grenade and blocked the explosion with his body. As a result of his courageous action, he received severe head and chest wounds. Through his indomitable courage, complete disregard for his personal safety, and profound concern for his fellow soldiers, Private First Class Kinsman averted the loss of life and injury to the other 7 men of his element. It is for his courage and unwavering devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Private First Class Thomas J. Kinsman.
Lieutenant Colonel Joe M. Jackson was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry above and beyond the call of duty during action against the enemy in Vietnam. Colonel Jackson volunteered to attempt the rescue of a 3-man U.S. Air Force combat control team from the Special Forces camp at Cam Duc. Hostile forces had overrun the forward outposts and established gun positions on the airstrip. The camp was engulfed in flames, and ammunition dumps were continuously exploding and littering the runway with debris. To further complicate his landing, the weather was deteriorating rapidly, thereby permitting only one airstrike prior to his landing. Although fully aware of the extreme danger and likely failure of such an attempt, Lieutenant Colonel Jackson elected to land his aircraft and attempt the rescue. Displaying superb airmanship and extraordinary heroism, he landed his aircraft near the point where the combat control team was reported to be hiding. Once that team was on board, Colonel Jackson succeeded in getting airborne despite the hostile fire. It is for his courage and unwavering devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Lieutenant Colonel Joe M. Jackson.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the valiant efforts of Chaplain Angelo J. Litke of the United States Army. Chaplain Litke was awarded the Medal of Honor as Chaplain Litke was participating in a search and destroy operation when Company A came under intense fire from a battalion-sized enemy force. Observing 2 wounded men, Chaplain Litke moved within 15 meters of an enemy machine gun position to reach them, placing himself between the enemy and the wounded men. Inspired by his courageous actions, the company rallied and began placing a heavy volume of fire upon the enemy's positions. In a magnificent display of courage and leadership, Chaplain Litke began moving upright through the enemy fire, administering last rites to the dying and evacuating the wounded. Upon the unit's relief on the morning of December 7th, 1967, it was discovered that despite his painful wounds in the neck and the foot, Chaplain Litke had personally carried over 20 men to the landing zone for evacuation during the savage fighting. Through his indomitable inspiration and heroic actions, Chaplain Litke saved the lives of a number of his comrades and enabled the company to repulse the enemy. It is for his courage and unwavering devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Chaplain Litke. And for reasons unbeknownst to many of us, Chaplain Litke has renounced his Medal of Honor, but still, on this floor of the House, deserves to be honored for the heroism that he demonstrated that day in 1967.
Master Sergeant Nicholas Oresco was a platoon leader with the Company C 94th Infantry Division of the United States Army and was awarded the Medal of Honor for his action on January 23, 1945 in Germany. While Company C was conducting an attack, it came under heavy enemy fire from its flanks, pinning the unit down. Master Sergeant Oresco swiftly moved forward alone, engaging the first bunker at point-blank range and eliminating the enemy. Despite being wounded by grenade shrapnel, he pushed forward and managed to eliminate a second bunker with a grenade and clearing the remaining enemy with rifle fire. Although severely wounded, Master Sergeant Oresco refused to leave the field until the mission was complete. It's for his quick thinking, indomitable courage, and devotion to duty in this attack that I'm proud to honor and remember the actions of Master Sergeant Nicholas Oresco.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to submit for the record, on behalf of my colleague from the great state of Wisconsin, Mr. Duffy, in honor of the valiant efforts of Sergeant Einar H. Ingman of the United States Army. Sergeant Ingman's company was pinned down by enemy fire that wounded all squad leaders and several other men. Then Corporal Ingram assumed the command, reorganized and combined the 2 trapped squads, and proceeded to charge the enemy machine guns alone. He took out one crew with a grenade before being hit by a second machine gun. Seriously injured and with incredible courage and stamina, Corporal Ingman rose and killed the entire gun crew using only his rifle before falling unconscious from his wounds. As a result of this singular action, the defense of the enemy was broken, his squad secured its objective, and more than 100 hostile troops abandoned their weapons and fled in disorganized retreat. It is for his courage and unwavering devotion that I am proud to honor, on behalf of my good friend and colleague from Wisconsin, Mr. Duffy, and remember the actions of Sergeant Einar H. Ingman, Jr.
Private George Taro Sakato served with the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, the most highly decorated unit in the United States Army's history to this day. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for extreme gallantry on October 29, 1944, in France. During a devastating assault by his platoon, Private Sakato killed 5 enemy soldiers and captured 4. When his unit became pinned down by enemy fire and without regard for that enemy fire surrounding him, Private Sakato charged forward and encouraged his squad to advance as well. During the maneuver, Private Sakato's squad leader was killed. In taking charge, Private Sakato relentlessly pushed his men forward. Private Sakato and his unit were ultimately victorious in halting the enemy's attack. During this entire action, he managed to kill 12 enemy soldiers while wounding 2 others. It is for his gallant courage and fighting spirit that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Private George Taro Sakato.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the heroic efforts of Lieutenant Thomas Roland Norris of Hayden Lake, Idaho, on behalf of my colleague, Mr. Labrador from Idaho. Lieutenant Norris was a SEAL advisor and was awarded the Medal of Honor for supreme bravery in action from April 10th to April 13th, 1972 in Vietnam. During the three-day period, Lieutenant Norris and a five-man team established a forward operating base deep within heavily controlled enemy territory to conduct a rescue of several downed pilots. Although the first pilot was located and rescued on the evening of the first night, a second pilot was still missing. On the last day, Lieutenant Norris and one Vietnamese dressed in fisherman disguises traveled in a sampan upriver and located the last pilot. Lieutenant Norris and his companion were then able to safely return the pilot for medical care and evacuation. It is for his outstanding display of leadership and courage that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Lieutenant Thomas Roland Norris.
Private First Class Robert Ernest Simenek was serving in Company F, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, 1st Marine Division, and received his Medal of Honor for his heroic actions in Korea on August 17, 1952. When his unit came under attack by mortar and small arms fire, this private displayed an enormous level of commitment to his fellow troops by throwing himself on a grenade that was hurled in the midst of his unit. Although sustaining serious wounds, Private First Class Simenek's valiant action saved his fellow Marines from serious injury and death. It is for his act of great personal valor and service to his country that I am so proud to honor the actions of Private First Class Robert Ernest Simenek.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to now recognize my friend and colleague from the great state of South Carolina, Mr. Sanford.
Thank you, and I would thank both of you for what you're doing tonight. As we well know, there are many heroes from across this country. Most recently, we've seen them here in the Capitol with the tragedy of the Naval Yard. But I think that you all are doing something very special by recognizing military heroes in their different acts of heroism and courage over the years. And I'd like to single out a resident from my home state of South Carolina, Major General James Everett Livingston. And his story is an interesting one, as are so many of the stories that you've read. But, back in May 2nd of 1968, he found himself as a young captain in the most unenviable of positions, in that a Marine company had been basically partitioned and was separated, and he and other men courageously went in to basically extract that Marine company. In the process, he was hit twice by grenade shrapnel, but he himself declined on medical help until they were able to go in, extract those Marines, and get them out. I think it's in keeping with the military tradition of never leaving a man or a woman behind, and it says a lot about his personal courage that he would, again, keep in the fight, even after withstanding personal injury, until those Marines were, again, up, out, and extracted. And so with that, I would simply like to single out his 33 years in the Marines, single out his wife Sarah and his daughters Melissa and Kimberly for what they know, which is they have a hero for a dad and indeed a recipient of the Medal of Honor. Thank you again for what you all are doing, and I'd yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Sanford.
Lieutenant Joseph Kerry of the United States Navy was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry in taking action against the enemy in Vietnam. Kerry led his SEAL team on a mission to capture important members of the enemy's area political cadre, known to be located on an island in the Bay of Nha Trang. Splitting his team into two elements and coordinating both, Lieutenant Kerry led his men in the treacherous downward descent to the enemy's camp. Just as they neared the end of their descent, intense enemy fire was directed at them, and Lieutenant Kerry received massive injuries from a grenade which exploded at his feet and threw him backward onto the jagged rocks. Utilizing his radio man, Lieutenant Kerry called in the second element's fire support, which caught the confused Viet Cong in a devastating crossfire. Lieutenant Kerry resolutely directed his men, despite his near unconscious state, until he was eventually evacuated by helicopter. It is for his courage and unwavering devotion to duty that I am so proud to honor and remember the actions of Lieutenant Joseph R. Kerry.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of my colleague from the great state of Idaho, Mr. Labrador, I rise to honor the heroic efforts of Colonel Bernard Francis Fisher of the United States Air Force and of Kuna, Idaho. Colonel Fisher was with the 1st Air Commando Squadron and was awarded the Medal of Honor for his conspicuous gallantry on March 10, 1966 in the Republic of Vietnam. A Special Forces camp was under attack and hostile troops had positioned themselves between the airstrip and the camp. Colonel Fisher observed a fellow airman crash on the airstrip. In the belief that the pilot was injured and in danger of capture, Colonel Fisher decided to land and attempt to rescue. Directing his own cover, he landed and taxied the full length of the runway to rescue the pilot. Colonel Fisher's aircraft was struck 19 times. In the face of fire, he applied power and took off at the overrun airstrip. It is for the risking of his life above the call of duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Colonel Bernard Francis Fisher.
Lieutenant Thomas G. Kelly was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions and going above and beyond the call of duty against the enemy in Vietnam. Lieutenant Kelly was in charge of a column of 8 river assault aircrafts which were extracting 1 company of U.S. Army infantry troops on the east bank of the Ong Muong Canal in Quien Hoa Province, when one of the armored troop carriers reported a mechanical failure of a loading ramp. At approximately the same time, Viet Cong forces opened fire from the opposite bank of the canal. After issuing orders for the crippled troop carrier to raise its ramp manually and for the remaining boats to form a protective cordon around the disabled craft, Lieutenant Commander Kelly, realizing the extreme danger to his column and its inability to clear the ambush site until the crippled unit was repaired, boldly maneuvered the monitor in which he was embarked to the exposed side of the protective cordon in direct line with the enemy's fire, and he ordered the monitor to commence firing. Sustaining serious head wounds from the blast which hurled him to the deck of the monitor, Lieutenant Commander Kelly disregarded his severe injuries and attempted to continue directing the other boats. It is for his courage and unwavering devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Lieutenant Thomas G. Kelly.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today and also ask to submit this for the record on behalf of my colleague, Mr. Stivers from Ohio, to honor the heroic efforts of Master Sergeant Ronald Eugene Rosser of the United States Army. Master Sergeant Rosser was serving with the 2nd Infantry Division and received his Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry in action on January 12, 1952 in Korea. When Master Sergeant Rosser's platoon came under heavy enemy fire from 2 sides, he charged the enemy's positions, taking the hill and killing 7. Master Sergeant Rosser then descended to rearm and retake the hill once more while eliminating enemies along the way. After he had taken the hill a 3rd time and killed at least 13, Master Sergeant Rosser helped retrieve the wounded men and make a successful withdrawal. It is for his gallant actions and courageous and selfless devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Master Sergeant Ronald Eugene Prosser.
It is on behalf of my colleague from California, Alan Lowenthal, that I am proud to honor 2 of his constituents who have been recipients of this prestigious Medal of Honor. The first is Corporal Tibor Rubin, who served the United States Army with the 1st Cavalry Division and received his Medal of Honor from his actions on July 23, 1950 to April 20, 1953 in Korea. While the regiment was withdrawing, Corporal Rubin single-handedly held off enemy charges, allowing the 8th Cavalry to complete its withdrawal. On October 30th, a number of Chinese forces mounted an assault on Corporal Rubin's unit. He maintained his firing position until he had exhausted all of his ammunition. Although inflicting heavy casualties on the enemy, Corporal Rubin was eventually captured. While in prison camp, however, the corporal continued his resistance and selflessness by caring for his sick comrades. Also from Congressman Lowenthal's district is one of our heroes, 2nd Lieutenant Walter David Ehlers. He served with the 1st Infantry Division of the United States Army and was awarded the Medal of Honor for his service in France. 2nd Lieutenant Ehlers was part of the 2nd wave on D-Day. When the 1st wave became pinned down, his unit was sent forward to assist. On June 9th, he led his unit's attack against German forces and defeated several enemy machine gun nests. The very next day, his platoon came under heavy fire, and he single-handedly diverted enemy fire so his fellow servicemen could withdraw. Despite being wounded, 2nd Lieutenant Ehlers carried another wounded rifleman to safety. Even after he was treated, he refused to be evacuated so that he could return to leading his squad. It's for his display of indomitable courage that I'm so proud to honor and remember the actions of Second Lieutenant Walter David Ehlers.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of my colleague from the great state of Oregon, Mr. Walden, and ask that this be submitted for the record on behalf of him to honor Technician 5th Grade Robert Dale Maxwell of the United States Army. Technician 5th Grade Maxwell was in 3rd Infantry Division and was awarded the Medal of Honor for supreme bravery in action on September 7, 1944 in France. Technician 5th Grade Maxwell and 3 others, armed only with .45 caliber sidearms, defended the battalion headquarters against an overwhelming onslaught by an enemy platoon. Despite withering enemy fire, Maxwell aggressively fought off the advancing enemy and inspired his fellow soldiers to continue. When an enemy hand grenade landed among the squad, Mr. Maxwell unhesitatingly hurled himself upon it, using his blanket and body to absorb the full force of the explosion. The act of incredible heroism permanently maimed Technician 5th Grade Maxwell, but saved the lives of his comrades and enabled vital communications to continue during the withdrawal from headquarters. It is for his valiant efforts and relentless spirit that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Technician 5th Grade Robert Dale Maxwell.
Captain Thomas Jerome Hudner, Jr. served the United States Navy's Fighter Squadron 32 and was awarded the Medal of Honor for his brave actions on December 4, 1950 in the air over Korea. When Captain Hudner's wingman was shot from the air and crash-landed behind enemy lines, he courageously circled his comrade and attempted to fight off enemy advancing on his wingman's position. Upon noticing that his wingman was stuck in his burning plane, Captain Hudner crash-landed his own plane into the rough mountains and in close proximity of the enemy's position in an attempt to save his buddy. Captain Hudner ran to his wingman's position and attempted to free him from the burning wreckage. Unable to free him, Captain Hudner returned to his aircraft to call in a rescue helicopter and support personnel. It is for his exceptionally valiant actions that I'm proud to honor and remember the actions of Captain Thomas Jerome Hudner, Jr.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the bravery and courage of Sergeant Gary Burnell Bykirch of the United States Army. Sergeant Bykirch was with the 1st Special Forces and was awarded the Medal of Honor for extreme gallantry in action on April 1, 1970 in Vietnam. When an enemy force launched an attack, the Allied defenders suffered a multitude of casualties. Without regard for his own well-being, Sergeant Bykirch sprinted from position to position to treat the wounded servicemen. Upon receiving notice that an American officer had been wounded and left exposed, Sergeant Bykirch charged through enemy fire and carried the officer to safety. Instead of allowing for his own wounds to be treated, Sergeant Bykirch ran continuously between the aid station and the field of battle to retrieve the wounded. It is for his complete and utter devotion to the welfare of his fellow soldiers that I am proud to honor the actions tonight of Sergeant Gary Burnell Bykirch.
Lieutenant General Robert Franklin Foley served in the United States Army, where he received the Medal of Honor for leading his unit, Company A, 2nd Battalion, 27th Infantry, 25th Division, on November 5, 1966, in the Republic of Vietnam. While moving to aid a besieged unit, Lieutenant General Foley's company clashed with a strong enemy defense post. Lieutenant General Foley, directing 3 platoons, was able to attend to wounded soldiers while advancing them. Coming under intense fire, the Lieutenant General alone continued to advance until the wounded had been evacuated. Then, after being struck by a grenade himself, Lieutenant General Foley refused medical aid and then led an assault to destroy 3 enemy positions. It is for his outstanding leadership and selflessness that I'm so proud to honor and remember the actions of Lieutenant General Robert Franklin Foley.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the supreme heroism of Colonel Harvey Curtis Barnum, Jr. of the United States Marine Corps. Colonel Barnum was with the 3rd Marine Division and was awarded the Medal of Honor for conspicuous gallantry in action on December 18, 1965 in Vietnam. Colonel Barnum's company became pinned down by enemy fire. Upon discovering the company commander and radio operator were seriously wounded, he took control of the radio and assumed command of the rifle company. Colonel Barnum began positioning the men into firing positions and began identifying targets to engage. Behind his leadership, the units maintained their composure in the face of extreme danger and positional disadvantage. Colonel Barnum took point and led the platoon on a successful counterattack, eliminating key positions and evacuated the wounded. It is for his extraordinary courage that I am proud to stand here to honor and remember the actions of Colonel Harvey Curtis Barnum, Jr.
Colonel Gordon Ray Roberts was a rifleman in the 101st Airborne Division and was awarded the Medal of Honor for his service on July 11, 1969 in Vietnam. Colonel Roberts' platoon was sent to provide assistance to a sister company. When his platoon became pinned down by heavy gun and grenade fire, Colonel Roberts, with utter disregard for his own well-being, charged forward beyond the perimeter and safety of his unit. Without fear or concern, Colonel Roberts eliminated 4 enemy positions and linked up with the imperiled company. He assisted with evacuating the wounded and supervised the withdrawal from the position before returning to his own unit. It is for his gallant and selfless actions, contributing directly to saving the lives of his fellow soldiers, that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Colonel Gordon Ray Roberts.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Lieutenant James McGinty III of the United States Marine Corps, who is from Beaufort, South Carolina. Lieutenant McGinty was with Company K and was awarded the Medal of Honor for his gallantry in action as a platoon leader on July 18, 1966 in Vietnam. While providing rear security to guard the withdrawal of the battalion, Lieutenant McGinty's 32-man platoon came under heavy fire. During the barrage, 2 of McGinty's squads became separated. Disregarding his own safety, McGinty ran through automatic weapons and mortar fire to convene with the separated squads. Upon arriving, he found 20 men wounded and the medical corpsman killed. He quickly reloaded ammunition for the wounded men, and though wounded, continued to encourage his troops and direct their fire. Through multiple close encounters, Lieutenant McGinty was able to adjust artillery and effectively fight off the enemy. It is for his indomitable heroism and devotion to duty that I am proud to honor and remember the actions of Lieutenant John James McGinty III. Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize Ms. Gabbard for some closing comments.
Thank you.
And reserve the balance of my time.
It has truly been a privilege and a high note of my service as a member of Congress to be able to stand here with my friend and colleague, Congressman Davis, to be able to read the highlights of the courageous actions of heroes whose service has allowed us to be here today. This is a moment that I will never forget, a moment that I look forward to sharing with many of my battle buddies, my service members back home. And it's a time for us to reflect. As we've heard through reading through these courageous actions, it's like reading through a storybook. These are the actions of heroes and legends that maybe we imagined as children, but to know that these are living heroes who not only put their lives on the line in the service of our country overseas, but have come home and continued that service, who have only accepted this Medal of Honor in a humble way and to honor those who did not make it home. I look forward to us in our work here in Congress to be able to live up to the standard that they have set and to honor their service and sacrifice as we do our best working in the People's House to serve our country. I yield back.
Thank you. This would not have happened without great people helping to put this information together to honor these true heroes. I want to thank some folks who have worked with me: Nick Cazzo, Jordan Wellinghoff, Catherine Ayers, Sean T. Pant, and Jenny Baldwin, Drew Collins, Frank Santana, and Osborne Crosby, among many others that I'm sure I'm going to forget to mention tonight. But remember, this is an honor tonight where we are not Republicans, we are not Democrats, we are Americans, coming together to honor in a bipartisan fashion 79 individuals who fought to protect the freedoms that we enjoy, to be able to stand here on this House, to stand here in freedom, to be Americans and to govern. It is with great pride that I was able to be joined tonight by my colleague, my friend, Tulsi Gabbard, also a member of our military today. Thank you for your service, Tulsi. Thank you for your service to your country here, and thank you for your service to our country as a member of the Hawaii National Guard. It is with great privilege that I was honored to stand here tonight to recognize so many true American heroes, and it's a privilege that I will never forget throughout my career, and I yield back the balance of my time, if I have any, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman yields back. The chair lays before the House the following